I think the biggest thing is like allowing ourselves to try. So like just earlier today, I had someone that was wearing a dress and a skirt, and it was a male, and he's like, "Oh my god, I want a houseboy," and that started to turn me on. And
loving it, and I'm feeling this arousal.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my god.
I don't know why, but I just really want to pour cream all over you and lick it off of you. And I was like, yes, I can masturbate to like the idea of like making my clients happy and their marriage working out.
Everyone has a kink. Hello everyone, welcome to Open Mind. We just had a very open and intriguing conversation with Cami Romero.
Cami is an intimacy and relationships coach, and she's also an international shibari artist. We're super excited to share the most interesting parts with you, so let's dive in.
What does the intimacy coach do? Like, do you teach people how to have sex?
So, I mean, you would imagine that a lot of it starts, okay, our goal is to get people to have the most embodied world traveling, like you're creating new dimensions, melting into each other into one. That's our goal. However, we have to break it down into smaller goals. And a lot of the time it's about teaching how to share our desires. Communicating, finding that biggest thing to communicate. Like, what was the hardest thing for you, like, to ever communicate at your in your lifetime with your partner?
And some things took like many years just to be able to pronounce that I want this or I want that, but like you don't tell it straight right away.
Exactly. And this is the person that you love, that you're supposed to be with, and that you're married, that like, how can you be withholding this information? Like, and imagine that weight. Like, imagine all our thoughts each day, how often you're thinking them. Now think about like something that's challenging you this week. How many times have you thought about it? Now that space that's taking up, instead of you actually talking about it or doing something, you keep thinking about it. It's taking up more space instead of
it builds up and it builds up and builds up.
Yeah. We have to really understand, okay, what are you thinking over the most, and what do you want to commit to like solving that, or do you want to commit to letting it go? And so there's two pathways, like which one are you ready for? And so a lot of the time it's like my intention in the back of my mind is like, okay, if a couple is coming to me, I'm going to honor that couple in wanting to make sure that they are staying together no matter what. So if one partner, like their biggest goal is to stay together, but one partner wants to explore some desires that another partner doesn't want to, well, first we have to build trust. We have to build safety. And how do we do that? Through action, through communication, through showing up for each other.
Through being vulnerable.
Exactly. So it's like all these words, all these actions that then finally someone's going to surrender and feel soft and finally open up and want to have that glorious sex, to want to have like, then that's when we get into good stuff of like teaching different positions and different kinks and different ways of being. But the biggest part first is being able to show up in your own self. Like just earlier today, I had someone that was wearing a dress and a skirt, and it was a male, and he's like, I want to be like the 90s. I want to be like punk, but the world doesn't allow me to. And so when he's with me, like,
you allow.
I allow it. I make sure he does. And I'm like, no, you put on that lingerie with that dress. Like, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful.
She's yours forever.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Cami, tell us about how your journey into the topic of sensuality and sexuality began.
First, I started with tea. So to sit with tea for many years, I would look back. I had this one mastery that I wanted to accomplish, was learning about tea, how to serve tea, how to pour tea. And it even felt like it was a past life that I had lived, that I was a tea monk or some tea sensei, because it just came so naturally. And so for me, that meditation of being so present with a plant, with this other spirit, this other outside of me, this entity, and connecting and grieving and feeling that loss, feeling that sense of sorrow, feeling happiness, feeling joy, all in one cup every single time I sat down. That was that sensuality. That was that first moment, that first taste of what it was to experience and like sense into my reality, to understand what it is to live, to feel the expansion of this human experience. And as I would watch the flowers, I would play, I would tinker, the leaves, the tea leaves. So if it was osmanthus, the flower, and then, because I work a lot with osmanthus oolong, I would work a lot with osmanthus oolong, and the oolong flowers would open up And one day I remember so vividly that I'm sitting there putting the tea leaves on my face, playing with it to another level. Mm-hmm. And this, one of my like roommates at the time in Australia, she's like, "What are you doing? Mate, you got leaves all your face." And I was just like, "Oh yeah, this is me being a tea fairy." And she's like, you really outdone yourself. And I'm so, I remember that moment of just where we start to cross the boundaries. Where we start to cross the boundaries of like, okay, I'm experiencing, I'm sitting with it, I'm in becoming introspective for that sensual moment. And then it starts to become our expression of what we're feeling, what we're experiencing. And that expression is erotic. It's our eroticism. It's whether we know it or not, whether it means to be that so vulgar, that so more often people see eroticism as. Mm-hmm. No, it's just an expression. And from there, I began to play, to immerse myself, to really understand and see of moving away from this linear idea of, okay, I have a checklist, I complete a goal, I go to school, I finish school, I go get a job, I get married, I do all these things. And one day I finally woke up and I was like, no, that's not me. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to work corporate. I'm going to go travel. I'm going to go learn more about tea. I'm going to learn more about myself. And as I began that journey with tea in hand, carrying my teacups, carrying my teapot, going everywhere from India to Israel to Qatar to Australia to Taiwan to Bali, carrying all my little teacups, serving tea anywhere I could in nature. And that was that expression of me. And then it came to be where I was understanding how that expression was my power. It was my power that got to awaken me, and how I got to connect with the world. When sometimes I was like, I don't know how to share my story. But tea was there to share my story, to be able to share this experience. And so it was this like medium where I was like connecting with people. And from that power that I was receiving from my sensuality, I started to learn more about my sexuality. And you're like, okay, but how do you gain your power with your sexuality? And for me, it was really understanding how to say yes, how to really say no and like own my no, and how to set boundaries, how to start to embody that expression of like, okay, this is what I do like, and this is what I'm not available for. And this is something where I don't know anything about, so let's explore and let's like check in. And so with tea, it honestly gave me those moments of reflection to understand like that sexual experience wasn't so great. I think I need to go back and voice myself more, vocalize what I actually really want. But without that sensual, soft moment, that moment to really go inward, I wouldn't be able to be this fully expressive, no bounds on me, no like liberated, feeling free to do whatever I want.
Mm-hmm. Cami, and how is sexuality connected to spirituality?
That is a great question, because that I've been feeling so much in my body. And when I start to feel out of alignment with my goals, when I start to feel like I'm doing versus being, that's when I realized that I'm no longer connected to my sexuality. I'm no longer connected to my womb speaking to me of what I should actually do. I'm more in this idea, this concept of like, oh, this is how the world's telling me, and I'm going to just do this and turn off. And so when you're in your spiritual essence, when you're in that purpose, that driven essence of like, okay, so if we break down what spirituality means, for me, it's the essence of this moment. It's the essence of what we're here to do, what we're here to be created, and this power of all of us being so connected. Now, if we're connected, if we're in our purpose, in what we're supposed to be doing, then we know that we're in this creation mode.
Yeah.
So if I'm not created with that power, that connection, then I'm just creating just to create, and I've lost that power source. Now, a lot of the time I've worked with sex magic. I've worked with just really tapping into my own sexuality, playing with myself, exploring myself, feeling what it brings me so much joy and pleasure. So when I'm not feeling joy and pleasure in what I'm doing, creating, showing up to like speak with you and have this tea, if I'm not enjoying that, then
you're doing something wrong.
Yes, exactly.
So like the joy, the feeling of pleasure and the enjoyment is like the indicator of the right direction, right?
Correct, because I'm circling that sexual like energy through my body and I can feel it's alive. So
yeah,
if you
so it's not only about sex, but about like pretty much everything you do.
Yeah. And and then that final consummation of like actually having sex, because what we're doing is like we're birthing like over and over so many, like how beautiful it is that women get to birth and create humans. But also if we're not creating humans, we're creating like beautiful art or projects. And so if we're really investing that time, that rest, digestion, surrendering to like sometimes we need that cocoon phase. Like in the first months of your trimester, you're out. Like you're needing to really just like give all that energy to that birthing, that creation, that sexual energy. And so you're cultivating, you're holding it in more. Second trimester, you're a little bit out more. You're being more, you're telling people that you're pregnant. Yeah. And so the same thing with our creative projects and our way of being, that we have to honor those natural cycles. Yeah. To really get into, okay, and so that's where it's like understanding our sexuality, understanding, okay, how do I play? How do I interact? Am I more I want to watch and observe and see and be like a voyeur? Or do I want to participate? Do I want to direct? And each of us has our own little erotic blueprint. It has our own sexual design. And so it's understanding, okay, how am I living my purpose through my creative process? So sexuality is that creative process. And so for me, like to tap into, okay, when I said I didn't have power before, that was when I felt disempowered. That's when I was not connected to what I'm ultimately supposed to be doing, that spirituality. Yeah. I had this disconnect. I didn't know. I was being taught religion, but it made no sense because we weren't talking about sexuality. Absolutely. And when I started to understand my sexuality and live my own authentic expression of my spirituality, that's when it all felt so alive in my body. No longer did I feel like I was trapped. Yes. I could go anywhere I want and explore and see, and like, okay, I take it back, that didn't work for me. I go this way now. And so I think that's...
But you allow, every time you allow yourself to try and to at least look into it, right?
Exactly. I think the biggest thing is like allowing ourselves to try. So for me, I want to try it at least 2 or 3 times. Okay. Because then the first time it's like new. Sometimes it's a little dry and it's like, oh, did I really like that? Another time it's like, okay, maybe it was with the wrong person, and I try it again and it's with another person and I love it.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
So sometimes you try something in sex and you say, oh no, that's not for me, I didn't like it, but it's worth trying a couple more times. And maybe you're going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a good question, actually.
I'm not going to give up because I'm like, oh, one and done. No. There's so, like, I could have been, like, that's where we have to really break it down of how are we feeling emotionally? Like, maybe checking in, like,
just setting goals.
Yeah.
Things and what's your current mood and the situation and everything.
It comes back to being a scientist of our life. Like, what little variables can we tinker with? Like, I'm going to try something new, a new desire that my partner wants. And so am I happy to try it, or do I feel closed off to try it? Because if I feel closed off, hey, let's wait a bit. But not being afraid that, like, oh, now I'm going to make them upset. Like, no, we both have to come together as 2 mature adults of, like, when we're both ready, it's going to be fireworks. We're going to be excited.
Yeah. But then one partner needs to be, like, patient, of course.
Both partners need to be patient. Especially if you're bringing in a third partner, you need to be patient. Like, it's extremely patient. I get it very often of like, I want to bring in a third person. And it's like, well, as a unit, how do both of you feel about that? And have you talked about it? Have you had an interaction together where you're just all talking together? And some people are like, well, I want to feel like it's novel. And so I want it to be not where we have to talk. I want it to just happen. There's novelty and mystery.
Yes.
And after you talk about it and check in and have consent talks and all those different things, and just like temperature check, seeing if like, okay, we want to jump in, but really, can we all jump in at that same place? No, we want to like all feel comfortable to do it at our own pace.
But that's a mature approach when you discuss things before doing it.
Yes.
Like when you don't think, you just dive in, then
that's where
you get what you get.
That's where you have to kind of like, if you're wanting to stop feeling like someone's crossing your boundaries, or you're wanting to take back that energy of like not feeling, I call it a hookup hangover. So,
Cami,
yes.
I have like that's
Yes.
not on the list, but I have a personal question. So, for example, if your partner wants something like
Yes.
in sexual thing, and you think you don't even think about it, like you don't want, you not that you don't want, but you don't,
Yeah.
you're not thinking about it. And then you are talking about this, and then you start like being interested. But then I personally don't know if it's my genuine interest or it's because it's his interest and I want to please him, and that's why I'm becoming interested. So how to
How to separate that?
yeah.
Well, what's wrong with you wanting to please him if it turns you on? Does pleasing him turn you on?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, that's easy.
I mean, another question I would ask yourself, have you been fed? Do you feel nourished? Do you feel loved? Do you feel cared for?
Yes.
The biggest thing, if you're feeling cared for, you feel loved, and you have check-ins before and after, why, like, unless he's like forcing you and you want to please him because he's forcing you and you don't feel cared for, then yes, I would say that's an issue. That's a challenge that we need to address. But if you love and you really get off to like, and this is where finding like our kinks, our special desires, if you get off to pleasing someone, then that's the joy of it. It's taking our perspective.
Yeah, it's good as it is.
Yeah, it's taking our perspective of like, okay, am I doing this just because I want to please them, or am I doing this because it feels good because I want to please them? Or am I doing this because, like, actually, I never thought about it, but now that you're saying it, I really want to.
Yeah.
So it can be so many different things, but it's feeling it in your gut and in finding that in, like, okay, sitting with it, giving yourself time to really, like, think, like, does this turn me on? And fantasize about it. So first start with fantasy of, like, okay, can I visualize it? Can I envision it? If you can't envision it in a meditation in your head, then it's probably not for you.
Okay.
But if you can envision it and it doesn't make you feel gross or like, okay, maybe I'm meditating on it, I'm envisioning it, and I'm like, ooh, like she goes and she grabs him, and I'm like, oh, and then all of a sudden I start to contract. It doesn't feel good. Yeah. And I'm like, does it not feel good because of the scene, or does it not feel good because I'm not telling them what to do? Because for me, I'm a director. And I'm like, okay, let me try it again. So in my mind, I'm imagining, okay, my partner and this other person. Okay, and now I come in and I tell this other person to start to kiss my partner's feet. And ooh, that turns me on. I start to feel it in my body. I feel alive, and I'm like, oh, I can do this. So it's really like painting that picture in your head and seeing like, okay, is it exciting me or is it making me contract? And is it making me contract in which way? Can I change it a little bit to make me happy? If not, then it's not a no-go. When people are wanting to find like, okay, what is my desire outside of being this? I would say meditate on it. Find more like self-time to like really go deep into like, okay, do like a dopamine detox, cut off all the like stimulants, coffee, like tea that has caffeine. You could do or herbal or flowers, Instagram, all those things, and really just sit in meditation and see what comes to you. Then start to bring in other ideas and see what comes to you that you really like and what excites you the most. So I felt this a couple months ago because I went through a breakup, and I was kind of like, wow, like I'm not inspired by anything, and I'm inspired by a lot. And I was like, wow, I'm not feeling inspired. So I just started sitting with myself and just thinking like, okay, what would really turn me on right now? And I imagined like just these like pictures of like, I was trying to, because normally what inspires me is creating for work, creating projects, serving people, coaching people, creating experiences where I'm creating new universes and dimensions. And I couldn't get myself there. So I was like, okay, I got to come back and serve me. And then I started thinking about like, oh my God, I just want a guy to like come and pet me to sleep and like cut my hair and like read me poetry. Oh my God. And then I want him to like wake up and cook for me. Oh my God, I want a houseboy. And that started to turn me on. And then I could start creating again. And all of a sudden, this block that I was feeling of like not wanting to show up to work, not wanting to like go out and hang out with friends, I was starting to feel like, okay, I need to process these emotions of like grieving and allow this, but also I want to feel inspired again. And so it's like letting yourself go to those places of like, okay, if I could have something right now, what would really turn me on? And let it be anything.
Yeah.
Like, don't expect it to be like sex. Don't expect like anything. Like, as I said, it was just someone petting me, taking me a bath, those little things. We had a really great interaction. I was telling a friend that like the night we were out, and I was like, gosh, I just want someone to lick ice cream off of me, and I want to sit on a cake and like have them lick it off of me. And then this guy I had been messaged me the next morning and was like, I don't know why, but I just really want to pour cream all over you and lick it off of you. And I was like, yes. I was like, were you at the restaurant that we were at the night before? And he's like, no, I was at this place. And I was just like, oh my God, I just manifested this. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
manifesting pure.
And we did it. It was a lot of fun. It was so interesting. It played out so great. Like, he took me a bath, he pet my hair, and he held me all night after he poured like this like full fat milk all over me. And I was just like, yes. And he licked it off of me. It was great.
I went to film school in Chicago.
Yeah.
And I remember whenever I was like, I needed to come up with an idea for a script. Like, and you know, when it's an assignment, it's like you're forcing yourself, but you know, if news isn't there, it's just like hard, and you're like just trying to find inspiration. And I remember the indication to me that I'm really having fun and something good is going to come out of the creation process is whenever like I would just sit down like working on the script, like just like sitting and working on the script and just writing out the ideas. And I remember it started happening to me when like I would just feel sexual arousal as I'm doing it, and I was like, seriously, like I'm just like being horny right now. I'm like really not. It's not like it's overwhelming. It's subtle. But, and then I started noticing it that I went to like different tasks. Like, for example, I'm sitting and editing and I'm really loving it. And I'm feeling this arousal. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God. So I guess it's nice to make that connection every time. And
well, this is it. Yeah, this is this energy. Like, whatever, when you join, you're
like, it's that life force energy. Like, again, it's that, like, you're creating life. And so by you doing what like really turns you on, it's going to magnetize people. So if you're pushing it and you're trying too hard, people are going to feel that energy. And so that's why it's like really understanding like the potency of like your sexuality, understanding that and not like putting blocks around it is going to allow you to go so much further. It's going to attract so many people and so many things and happen. Like, I can masturbate to like the idea of like making my clients happy in their marriage working out. I like masturbate to the idea of like creating a program or like fleshing it out, and then I go and write. And so when I'm doing that, that's when I know like I can actually give the energy and the time. If I'm not like masturbating, if I'm not like feeling pleasure or eroticism, I'm like, okay, there's something inside me that I need to address and talk to, or like,
well, yeah, I guess
unlock.
It's just we're conditioned not to be in deep connection with that feeling. It's like we're never taught that. Nowhere. Our parents are not telling us.
We're not taught to read this signal of the body.
Exactly.
I mean, even right now, like this is the first time I've heard someone else talk about like how they got aroused by like a project or work or what they're doing. Like I've told like multiple partners before, I'm like, yeah, I masturbate to my work, and they're like, what? And they're like, that's hot. And I'm like, yeah, like, what? Don't you? And so for women, I think it's like we do have this beautiful connection to our womb that is creating. Whereas men, like, it's their biology, their system is different. So they do kind of have to like, they're just go, 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 and they know how to do. They don't really need to listen to that like us, which is why their sex, their sexuality is so different. But when they do start to meditate and practice and like hold that life force and they start to feel it, they get to even pursue and push and like work on so much more magic. Like women, it's just innate. Like we get it, we do it, it's like great. But men have to work a little bit more for it. Women, we're kind of taught at a younger age to like not be connected to it. So we have to like clean off the cobwebs and like really tap into it. Because for us, it's so intuitive. For them, it's like, okay, no, they have to like almost like build the muscle.
If you can like walk us through what an intimacy or relationship coaching session look like.
Yeah. I mean, they all look so different. It depends on, okay, so tell me, give me like a challenge, or like, is it a single coming to me, one person coming to me, or a couple?
Well, it's, let's say a couple that is in a long-term relationships. They've been together for like 20 years and sexuality is not so great.
Is it the libido or is it the exploration?
Probably both, I would say, at this point.
Yeah. So is it mismatched libidos? Like one has a high libido and one has a low libido? Okay. Yeah. So what I usually have them do is I have people go into, okay, first I have a little questionnaire I have them fill out beforehand. I read up. I'm like, okay, this is the tools I'm going to bring in. then I have them drop into, we're going to just sit there and breathe together. Mm-hmm. If you can, I have them bring, like, if I'm on Zoom, I'm having them bring their own tea. If they're with me, we're going to have tea. Mm-hmm. Because I want them to start to have one point of connection if emotions get high. Mm-hmm. And if things start to feel distracting, I'm like, okay, remember, we're both connected, or we're all connected by this one cup of tea from the same plant. And so it brings their mind. I'm like, every time you drink, feel the warmth of it, feel the sensations. So that way it has this like grounding effect for them.
Yeah.
Then what I start to do is I have them look at each other and breathe, and like without touching, I have them, okay, now close their eyes and like see if they can feel each other. If they can't feel each other, okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to come and we're going to hold, like, can I hold your hands? So I want you to hover your hands above mine. Okay, and I want us to get as close as we can. Now take a big breath in and exhale. Did you feel my hands? Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to have them feel their like energy, their hands, until they can start to connect. Mm-hmm. Once we go from there, then I'm going to have them actually like close their eyes. And I'm going to have them start to come closer and then touch. And now what I want you to do is just send to me your intention. Send to me what you're really desiring, what you're really wanting. Think of it, the colors, the taste, how it felt, what you wanted. Exhale, gently releasing. And then I'm going to send to you what I desire. And then what we do is we come, and what we're going to say is like, you're going to say what you felt from me. I'm going to say what I felt from you. And then from there, we're just going to start with the sensations of feelings, getting them to talk before they even start to describe their desires. Because if we start to have them describe their desires, their mind is already going to start to put blocks on them into like unspoken narratives or unspoken rules that we start to create. And so what I want them to do is I want them to feel. I want them to be in their body. I want them to start to connect to each other and start to, like, without saying it, share their desires. Feeling free and safe to be honest and share their desires without speaking words. Then we start to bring in words. So my methodology is always like feeling, like first inwards experience, feeling, communicating on that. And then from there, okay, how do we take actionable steps to make that come true, to make that magic happen? So there's this term that I learned from working with Tantra and studying Tantra. It's called RBDSM. So it's relationships, boundaries, desires, sexual health, and the last one I say magic, how we're going to make it happen. So very much how any situation should occur is, how do we want this relationship, this dynamic, to move forward? Are we in partnership? Can we go deeper into that? Are we like wanting to feel love? Are we wanting to feel romance? Are we wanting this relationship actually just to be nurturing and caring, nothing too rough? Are we wanting the relationship to be like power dynamic? And then where are the boundaries for each person? Where are the desires? And having everybody reflect it back to each other. Because that's one of the biggest things. And we can talk. We can do talk therapy.
Yeah.
But unless someone's being reflected back what they're saying and heard, they're not going to feel seen.
Yeah.
So talking doesn't really feel like listening until someone just sits there.
Throwing somewhere.
Exactly. We don't want to just like lob that out and be like, oh, I hope you catch it.
Yeah, somewhere. Yeah, somebody else might catch it.
So I have them kind of like go together of like, okay, tell the person what you feel. Okay, now you tell them like what they're feeling.
How do you receive this?
Yeah, and make sure like, okay, is it aligned? Is that what you meant when they shared it? Okay, no, like say it in another way. And then the other person gets to share. So it's having this moment of going back and forth. And then at the end, asking questions, not to ask questions in between. Because if you start to ask questions in between, it takes away from the person sharing.
It goes pretty much into details.
Yeah. They're not feeling like they're seen. They're feeling like, okay, now I'm on the spot and I'm being questioned, because our mind is going to be like, oh, am I being questioned because they don't understand? Am I being questioned because they don't like it? Where is this going? No. We have to save the questions for the end.
You have an experience which is called ShibarTea.
Yes.
And as a shibari lover, I need to ask, what is this? How does this look like?
So how it began with this kind of how I was sharing like my connection of sensuality to sexuality. It's this experience. I want to tell a story. And so I'm going to have you grab your cup of tea. I want you to come really close to your cup, smelling, listening to what it has to say to you today, feeling into that hot, warm cup, taking a moment to look at it, observe it, witness it, seeing what the tea is like, And when you're ready, inviting the tea into your body. And then what we do is we go on this journey. After we have the tea, we have a moment of silence. We talk about pie. So pie is how you feel physically, how you feel intellectually, how you feel emotionally. And okay, now, how do you want to feel moving forward? So it was me working with couples, bringing together this, okay, I want to not be at a point where couples hate each other and they're about to divorce. No, I want to be that like prepared person to like, hey, let's like step in before and do preventative care. So ShibarTea was that experience that started with couples of being preventative care of how do we build this relationship, make it fun, make it exciting, and bring in the spiritual aspect, bring in the tantric aspect, the connection, and this kind of intrinsic and extrinsic value. So finding value within to learn from each other, and then an extrinsic value of like, okay, we're going to tie each other up at the end and feel it somatically. And so it's going inward to see, okay, what are we feeling? Talking about it with pie. And then from there, setting an intention together to weave those words, that feeling, that sentiment into this full-bodied expression of
Wow,
shibari.
that's such a beautiful experience.
Yeah.
So you combined the two passions, and that's
Yes, I combined my two passions and storytelling even, because what we're doing is we're telling a story with our bodies. We're telling a story with what's there, what's alive, the spirit, the essence of that moment, and we're sharing that, because that's where we get kind of blocked, is when we don't share our story, because we're like either told not to, or too much, oh, someone had a better story, or someone just ignores us. And so that was a beautiful moment when I was like, aha, this is where I get to let people shine in telling their story and make them tell their story.
Cami, one last question.
Yes.
Do you think that everyone has a kink, a special sexual need or desire?
I honestly believe that we do. Everyone has their own special, and it's so subtle. I was just talking to someone yesterday about it, because they thought that the kinks had to be pain or BDSM.
Yeah,
or
something
like,
crazy, yeah.
and it doesn't have to be that. It can be as safe as wanting to feel safe.
Yeah.
That they get aroused when someone makes them feel safe. And it's just arousal and excitement and wanting something when you're like in that sexual energy. And so everyone has it, whether they know it or not. It's just our kinks is something that's out of the ordinary. So think of now, everyone, I want you to think of your little homework, your takeaway, your goodie bag. What is bringing you joy that no one else really has talked about or done, but you know, like your little quirk, your little kink, that you really need that to get through the day, to really feel alive, to feel in your body, to feel sexy, to feel pleasured. Maybe it's like affirmations. You need someone to tell you you're doing good. Or maybe it's just someone to pet your head at the end of the night, just because you want to know everything's going to be okay. That safety. Or maybe it's just like, okay, I want to be viscerally like touched and squeezed and moved. Everyone, it's different. It's finding out really what yours is. So go out and explore.
I'm gonna do this homework for sure. Thank you very much. So our conversation is becoming more and more personal. So we're gonna wrap it. Cami, thank you very much for coming and sharing with us. It was like amazing.
I love how we wrapped it all up together and like got everything in there.
Yeah, guys, if you wanna know more about Cami, please, I'm sharing her website and Instagram account in the description to this video. Please feel free to reach her. She's really good. You can see it.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Cami. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah.
That was so fun.
Do you have any formal education in this sphere, or maybe there are masters or experts in the field that you can call your teachers?
I went to and studied to get my bachelor's in communication and inter and intrapersonal communication, as well as mediation. Then further went on to experience design, as well as creating these experiences. So I took how we communicate through space, how we connect and bring in that idea, that concept of like interaction through multiple forms. From there, that's when I completed my schooling, then was going to go get my master's, but wanted a break in between. So I went to go travel. I then became an au pair and was working with family systems and family units, helping to teach as well as learn Spanish. And within that dynamic, understanding like, okay, how do we develop our relationships? How do we work together? How does a family with one nucleus work, as well as an extra set of hands, me? From there, then I went to go study, and I went to another certificate program. And that was when I kind of was going through tea, and I went and started to travel to different, like Taiwan, to study with farmers, the tea farmers. And that was more of like studying energetics. And so I was working with the energetics and how we perceive the world, how we feel, which is really important, because I can tell you, I like you. Or I can tell you, God, I love the way that you're just looking at me and you're holding my presence. And it feels different. Mm-hmm. So what that tea moment of that tea master was teaching me, Fanny Yang, who now calls herself Quetzali, and she taught me really how to read the tea before it even spoke to me, before I drank it, how to read the people that were interacting with the tea. She took me to different tea farms to see, like, okay, what they're putting into it, what are we going to receive from it? Mm-hmm. And I got to internalize that when I learned communication of like, okay, how am I reading different relationships? And from there, then I went to like, I was also studying yoga, Zen Shiatsu, started to study shibari. Around those times with different masters in Australia as well as Bali, I was going under this process of understanding, okay, Tantra. I went to this one tantric workshop that then later started to work with daikinis and tantric priestesses, mm-hmm. and was learning from them in Australia. And it was this one workshop where she said, like, we have to remember that every sensation is never going to be the same. So whether I'm touching my finger, my pointer finger here, that doesn't mean that just because these are both pointer fingers, they're going to feel the same. So I went and did this, my own personal meditation. I went to go get my nipples pierced. And I was like, okay, instead of like thinking of another, because the person's like, think of something else far away. And I was in my head, I'm like, no, I'm going to focus on the sensations. So one was this like warm, stinging sensation. And another one was just like, it felt like the fat cells. Like I could feel like almost like the sensation brought and elicited a picture in my mind of just like, wow, like pushing through the fat cells. And I just felt it like almost this like nice, soft sensation. And it was in that moment that I realized like, okay, we have to stop comparing things. That lesson I learned from that experience, from those tantric practitioners, brought in like, I was meditating, writing so much. Finally, I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to school again. And then I went into a program, a regenerative design program, where everyone's designing like how we're going to have crypto, and how we're going to have our housing, and how we're going to have physical items. And I realized, is this program for me? Is it not? But no one was talking about social education, how we're creating our new society, our new culture, this new way of ideas and relationships, intimacy, emotions, emotional intelligence. No one was designing a new education platform, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to create this new methodology of how we talk about sex, how we talk about intimacy, relationships, and why is that not being taught in school at a younger age? So I went into this regenerative design program, started to design my own methodology, and for a year was working on how I was going to be teaching sensuality, intimacy, and sex education together.